Welcome as we start another week of covering all things people, power, and politics on Detroit's only nightly political talk show. I'm Rabbi Asher. The conventions are over, so now it's time for both candidates to hit the trail with just 70 days to go until Election Day. And between headlines from the left and from the right, social media posts from everywhere and their brother, what's real, what's not, it's a lot to keep track of. And so we've noticed more of you are turning to this show for a one-stop shop of everything politics done fairly. And we're going to take that commitment very, very seriously here. We begin tonight with more debate drama between Trump and the Harris campaigns, involving the rules and the moderators. We'll get into that in just a second here. Plus, a weekend of talks and no ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. A huge issue both candidates need to grapple with. And tonight, we're sitting down with a prominent Jewish leader for his take on where things stand for this key demographic in the election. But we begin with former President Trump back in Michigan, Detroit to be exact, for his first of two visits this week, speaking downtown at Huntington Place in front of the National Guard Association, the same group he spoke in front of during his first campaign back in 2016. Trump's speech was tailored around the military and border, and he gave this warning pretty early on in the address.
We have people that are fighting all over the place and threatening our country as we speak. I don't think we've ever been closer to World War III than we are right now. It's a terrible thing. Our country is being destroyed by a radical political class that sends our guardsmen and women to defend the borders of distant foreign nations while they surrender our own borders to an invasion right here at home.
He then kept going on about the border and repeated a claim he made in an interview with me last spring about crime in Venezuela.
Venezuela crime is down 72% because they've gotten their gang members. They're dropping them all into our country. Many countries, and I'm not just talking about South America, all over the world, they're dropping their criminals into our country.
Well, it's important to do a reality check. We tried to find the numbers that matched his claim, but couldn't find numbers from the Venezuelan Minister of the Interior that showed there was a 32% drop in crime. Actually, we should mention that there was a 32% drop in crime. That's according to the ministry. Government officials crediting law enforcement and economic factors, not migration. While the numbers leave us with questions, there's no question the border situation is a crisis and that more needs to be done. This election will be ground zero for border talk, and VP Harris will have some tough questions about what she did or didn't do enough of when it comes to this crisis. Also on the stage, Trump got another endorsement from another former Democratic presidential candidate, former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Remember her? She ran in 2020, but dropped out and ended up leaving the Democratic Party. Now she's an independent. Gabbard talked about why she's now endorsing the candidate she tried to run against just 4 years ago.
This administration has us facing multiple wars on multiple fronts and regions around the world, and closer to the brink of nuclear war than we ever have been before. This is one of the main reasons why I'm committed to doing all that I can to send President Trump back to the White House, where he can once again serve us as our commander-in-chief.
As we said, this isn't Trump's only visit to Michigan this week. He'll be in the Lansing area on Thursday, speaking at a steel plant in Potterville, just west of the capital city. And Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, will be in the Great Lakes State tomorrow. He'll speak at a horse farm in Big Rapids. And you know, we'll have full coverage of both visits. But now to the other side of the ticket, Vice President Harris spending her day on the campaign trail in another key battleground state, Georgia. Harris held a rally this evening in Atlanta, but before that, stopped at an historic black-owned restaurant in the city. It was a spot civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis met during the height of the movement. And by the way, a fun fact for all you music fans, the Harris rally tonight also featured Grammy-winning rapper Megan Thee Stallion. Well, the same day former President Trump is in Michigan, VP Harris's husband, second gentleman Doug Emhoff, will be in the Great Lakes State as well. He'll be speaking in Grand Rapids in what's being billed as a campaign event, but details have not been released. Of course, we'll let you know as soon as we hear them. And we are a little more than 2 weeks out from former President Trump and VP Harris squaring off on the debate stage. And wouldn't you know it, there's actually more debate drama for us to unpack tonight, one of them involving their microphones. We'll get to that in just a moment here. But as we always say, this show is all about you. So we're putting a pulse check out there asking if you think their mic should be muted when it's not their turn to speak.
The Bible says, out of the abundance of your heart, your mouth speaks. We know that what's in us is going to come out of us. Whether you mute the mics or don't mute the mics, at the end of the day, we need to have transparency. I believe that the mics should not be muted. The reason being is because what's in you is going to come out.
Turned off so he can't interrupt the other candidate.
They're not saying anything. They're sure the heck not doing anything like Kamala Harris.
Most definitely off.
How come?
Because you need to let the person say what they have to say and not interrupt them.
All right, we also put the question on our website. You can vote now by scanning that QR code right there at the bottom of your screen. So far, the vast majority of you think the microphones should be muted when it's not the candidate's turn. And we're hearing from you on social media as well. Anthony replied to my post on X saying this. Take a look. Don't care. It's a charade. They're excluding other candidates with ballot access to 270 votes in order to hide issues where Kamala and Trump largely agree on. Jim, also weighing in on Facebook, he had a chance to say this. Yes, they should be able to talk without being interrupted. It's a respect thing. And Gary Richards also commented on Facebook. He had this to say. Keep the mics on. We want to see who is professional during the debate and who's going to freak out and start yelling and screaming lies. All right, now to the debate drama. To mute or not to mute? That is the question. You'll remember in the debate between Trump and President Biden, microphones were muted when it wasn't a candidate's turn to speak. Trump wants to keep it that way. His campaign says it's the terms that they already agreed to. But Harris, well, Harris wants them live all the time, saying Trump's handlers don't think he can, quote, act presidential for 90 minutes on his own. You know, the whole reason this is an issue is the 2020 campaign. You remember this one? The first debate between Trump and Biden, it turned into a shouting match, and organizers muted them in the second debate to prevent that. But there's another layer of drama involved in the upcoming debate. Take a look.
I think ABC really should be shut out. I'd much rather do it on NBC. I'd much rather do it on CBS, frankly. I think CBS is very unfair, but the best of the group. And certainly I'd do it on Fox. I'd even do it on CNN. I thought CNN treated us very fairly the last time. I think Jake Tapper was very fair and Dana Bash was very fair. But when I watched this interview of Tom Cotton, fortunately he's a total pro, he knows what he's doing. And then when I watched the roundtable after that, I said the hostility is crazy.
The former president railing on ABC News, the network hosting the debate, saying he'd rather have it on another network. He also accused the network of being biased in a Truth Social post, adding, quote, why would I do the debate against Kamala Harris on that network? Of course, we'll be here every night to sort out the debate drama until the debate actually comes. Last week was a big week for Vice President Harris. She officially accepted the Democratic nomination. And as is expected after a convention, her campaign got that big bump. So it's time to go by the numbers. The first number we're talking about, $540 million. That's the amount the Harris campaign has raised during her bid for president. Her campaign chair says just before she spoke at the DNC on Thursday, her campaign crossed the $500 million mark. And here's our second number we want to point out to you. 200,000. That's the number of volunteer shifts supporters signed up for during convention week to help out the campaign. Well, now to the state level and the controversy surrounding a high-profile Republican in our state. We're talking about former co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party, Michonne Madic. Madic quoted a tweet by State Representative Jason Morgan, who is openly gay, and in the post used a homophobic slur. This isn't the first time she's made a homophobic comment on social media. 2 years ago, calling Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, quote, a weak little girl. We spoke with Representative Morgan today, who spoke out about this post made by Madic.
This isn't just some random troll online.
As a weapon.
This is a Republican Party boss and Trump campaign leader. You know, frankly, this isn't about me. You know, I'm a very proud, openly gay man who has a great husband and have a really good life where I'm at today. So these hateful taunts, they really don't undermine my pride, but it's rhetoric like this that drives the divisiveness and drives a lot of young LGBTQ people into depression and suicide. And so I felt an obligation to speak out for their sake.
Now, we did reach out to Madic multiple times today, but didn't hear back. We tried her on her cell phone. We tried her on DMs on Twitter. Madic will represent Republicans in the upcoming election and actually faces charges accused of plotting to overturn the results of the 2020 vote in our state. Well, the war in Gaza is a major topic as we head through the 2024 race. Last week, we had the Arab American perspective. Up next, a prominent Jewish leader is in the hot seat to talk about where things stand for him as the election nears. You're watching The Pulse on Fox 2. Back now on The Pulse, covering all things people, power, and politics, from the Motor City to the Beltway and beyond. The war between Israel and Hamas, as you know, is a huge issue heading into this election. Last week, you'll remember, we had Dearborn Mayor Abdullah Hammoud on the show, talking about the latest involvement and the uncommitted vote with Arab Americans.
We're not asking what she would do as vice president. What people are asking is what you would do as president. And as president, especially if it comes to the circumstance with the Republican Congress and the Democratic U.S. Senate, one of the only things you'll be able to make grounds on are actually on a foreign policy agenda. And so for us, what we're asking for is, what would a President Harris term look like? What would that policy look like? How would you differentiate yourself from current President Biden on the issue of Palestine and Israel and more?
As we say on the show, we give you both sides. Joining us now to give us the Jewish perspective, Rabbi Asher Lopatin, the Jewish Federation of Greater Ann Arbor's Director of Community Relations. And it's good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Rabbi.
Hey, thanks so much, Rube. Thanks. Always great to be on and great to hear the great work that you're doing.
Well, it's same here. As you all know, we're looking to have all voices on this show. Your voice is so important. We had Mayor Hammoud on talking about the Harris administration. He seemed pleased that she took a walk closer to the Palestinian interests than we saw Biden do for all of the years that he was in office. Did you notice that, and do you think that that's a good thing?
Well, I think that there's no contradiction between being very pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian. So the fact that she expresses concern for Palestinians and for their aspirations, I think doesn't take away at all for her commitment to Israel, for Israel's self-defense, for the war against Hamas, and for the return of the hostages. I mean, that was an incredible moment when Rachel Goldberg Poland spoke and Jonathan Poland about their son Hirsch. No, I actually think that for the sake of Palestinians, Hamas has to be defeated. This is not just a war of defense for Israel. This is a war to rid the Palestinians of Hamas, of 20 years, nearly 19 years of domination by a terrorist group over that territory. So I hope that President Harris, if she becomes president, continues to be sympathetic to Palestinians and Palestinian cause, but at the same time show that it can come at the same vision and passion and determination as standing up for Israel against its enemies. And frankly, the biggest enemy is Iran. I mean, Hamas is terrible, Hezbollah, but we got to fight Iran. And that's exactly what Kamala Harris said at the convention. She talked about Iran.
Sure.
Should have gone to Iran in 1979 when they took our American hostages.
Well, do you think then, if you're talking about Iran, Rabbi, respectfully, if you're talking about Iran, then you take a look at former President Trump. He was able to, during his presidency, kind of choke Iran of all of its money, its funding, its weapons, and its ability to hurt other countries. Do you think Trump did a better job than Biden at the job, if the job is to make sure that Iran remains powerless in this equation?
Yes, actually, I do think so. I think, look, I'm not going to get into the JCPOA that President Obama negotiated, but trying to placate Iran, trying to appease them, even trying to talk about de-escalation. What are we waiting for? Are we waiting for Iran to get nuclear weapons to threaten the whole Middle East? So this war, it's a war to free Palestinians from Hamas. It's a war to defend Israel and to return the hostages. But even more than that, it's a war for the whole Middle East to wake up and to understand how pernicious Iran is. And I pray for a regime change, because the Iranian people are wonderful people, and I think they're pro-Western also. It's time, and they don't even like their government. So it's time to focus on that. And I wish, that's the one thing I wish the Biden administration would focus more on, the damage that Iran is causing through its proxies.
Well, and I do want to talk to you a little bit about what we discussed with Mayor Hammoud here on the set just last week. We talked to him a lot about the uncommitted vote and the impact it could have on this election and other issues involving the region. Take a listen.
20 years, we have been asked to put the issues that are happening abroad as secondary. Because for 20 years, there's not been a president who has assumed the White House whose stances on the Middle East are reflective of those of us who come from the Middle East. That has not been the case. But now with the genocide that is unfolding, we have said enough is enough. This is a situation that is unprecedented. You now have civilian infrastructure that is decimated to the tune of 90%. 100% of people are now displaced across of Gaza. And in the most conservative estimates placed, the deaths close to 200,000. And so for us, what we are saying now is we're no longer making this issue secondary. And what we're saying is we want a presidential candidate who has the backbone and the courage to uphold international law, to put forth an arms embargo, and to hold the Israeli government accountable for the occupation, for the apartheid, and for the genocide that is unfolding.
And bottom line, if the folks who voted uncommitted, Rabbi, feel as though Harris doesn't do that, they're not afraid to do what they did during the primary, which was to essentially vote uncommitted. 101,000 people did that right here in Michigan. Is that something that's pretty consequential in this election?
Not at all. First of all, I don't know where to start in all the terrible lies. 200,000 people, even Hamas, the terrorist organization Hamas, talks about 40,000 people, and more than half of those are probably terrorists. But it's time for all communities to talk about peace, to talk about coexistence, shared society, and those people that can't deal with Israel's existence and talk about genocide and apartheid. You know, Israel pulled out of Gaza 20 years ago. So if you can't come to accept Israel's existence and understand how Palestinian national aspirations can work well with Israel's existence, then you really have no place in either party. And I think that Kamala Harris made the great point, like when she was speaking and they interrupted her and said, well, if you want to, help Trump win the election, go right ahead. But otherwise, I'm speaking. To expect uncommitted people to be able to speak at the convention, at Democratic convention, no, show your commitment and then come to the table and show your commitment to coexistence and shared society and Palestinians and Israelis living together. And then you will have a place at the table. But otherwise, this oppositionalism and the destruction of Gaza because of Hamas, because Hamas embeds itself everywhere, it's tragic. But it's tragic for the Palestinians to be dominated by Hamas for so long. And finally, I hope that the end is near, that Gaza will be freed from Hamas and can begin to rebuild in a shared way, a way of living together in peace with Israel.
And Rabbi, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that when I questioned Mayor Hammoud on that 200,000 number, he actually mentioned that it wasn't, he attributed it to some reporting that had been done, that it wasn't just the number of whole bodies, but pieces and parts of people that had been found that they had estimated would be somewhere around the 180,000 mark. But of course, this is not a debate between you and me and Mayor Hammoud about numbers, but rather about policy and who can best handle this. And you've made that very clear here tonight. And I want you to know, Rabbi, that you, as well as the mayor from Dearborn and anyone else, they're welcome on the show anytime to talk about this very important issue.
Thank you so much. And I know you mean it. So really, thank you. It means a lot. Well, that's why we have to come together. Civil discourse lets people that disagree come together and talk it out.
That's exactly what's going to happen on this show every night at 11:30. Rabbi Lopatin, it is so good to see you. Thank you for joining us here tonight.
Thanks so much. Be well. Shalom.
Welcome back to the Pulse, diving into everything people, power, and politics. I don't need to tell you that political news never stops, and if you take a break over the weekend, hey, we get it. That's why we're here to make sure you're up to speed with all the political news that happened since Friday. So in case you missed it, a Republican you might remember from the 2022 race won't seek a state Supreme Court justice seat after all. Matthew DePerno, remember him? He's a former Attorney General candidate, and now he won't be on the ballot for the state's highest court since dropping out on Friday. He became known for questioning the results of the 2020 election and actually faces felony charges accused of trying to illegally access and tamper with voting machines. State Supreme Court justices are nonpartisan, but candidates are nominated at party conventions. Also, in case you missed it, a hot-button issue came up once again over the weekend: abortion. Democrats have been running on abortion rights since Roe v. Wade was thrown out 2 years ago. And it's led to statements like this being made throughout various campaigns, and in this case, on the Democratic National Convention stage by President Joe Biden.
You know know Trump will do everything to ban abortion nationwide. Oh, he will.
All right, we told you last week how that goes against what former President Trump has said consistently through the campaign, that it's a states' rights issue. And that's something his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, has echoed recently, despite previously saying he'd support a national ban at 15 weeks. And he took it a step further, making this guarantee in an interview over the weekend.
Let me just follow up with you a little bit on that point, because I've been talking to Republicans, including Senator Lindsey Graham just last week, who've made it very clear that if Donald Trump is elected, if you are elected, they will continue to press this point. Senator Graham said to me, I'm going to keep saying that there should be a federal ban. If such a piece of legislation landed on Donald Trump's desk, would he veto it?
Well, I think it'd be very clear he would not support it. I mean, he said that explicitly. Yeah, I mean, if you're not supporting it as the President of the United States, you fundamentally have to veto it. So he would veto a federal abortion ban? I think he would. He said that explicitly, that he would.
Again, Trump has repeatedly said it's a state right issue during the campaign. He's told Fox 2 this, he tells national interviews this, that, look, he's in favor of exceptions for rape, incest, and to save the life of a mother. And one more thing you might have missed from the weekend, a civil rights icon honored in Georgia. A statue honoring the late Congressman John Lewis was unveiled in Decatur, Georgia, in the spot where a Confederate monument once stood. The statue of Lewis is 12 feet tall. The controversial monument it replaced was taken down in 2020. Lewis died back in 2020 at 80 years old. He was the youngest and last survivor of the Big Six civil rights activists. He was best known for leading some 600 protesters in the bloody Sunday march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, getting knocked to the ground and beaten by police. His skull was fractured. The CEO of DeKalb County, where the statue is located, spoke about this important moment.
This is who we are. This is literally the American dream being realized here today. We built a coalition, black, white, red and brown, Republicans, Democrats, independents, rich and poor, who came together first to remove a monument to separation and replace it with one of cooperation.
Hundreds came out to mark the unveiling of this well-deserved monument to an American icon.